Hello everybody, what's up, and welcome to the channel where we learn to be true heroes in the world of Overwatch. Today I have a little bit of a different video for you guys. I normally do commentaries and VOD reviews and stuff, but I was looking at some of you guys' VODs and they were great, but I just wasn't feeling inspired, watching some pro matches, and there wasn't anything I liked. So I decided to just pick out an interesting topic and have a little bit of a chat about it. So we're obviously, if you read the title, talking about hero roles, and I don't mean Blizzard's offense, defense, tank, support. Those are not very useful. Definitely, if you've played the game for any amount of time, you know that these roles pretty much don't mean anything. So what are some roles we can break the hero pool down into to really build teams? Because obviously you can't say, oh, we're on defense, guys, better pick defensive heroes. We're on offense, better pick offensive heroes. So let's come up with something that makes a little bit more sense. Now, this is divided into three main categories: damage dealers, brawlers, like people who can take damage, and then supports over here. Every team kind of needs a little bit of each of these categories to be successful. These heroes put out a ton of damage, but usually at the cost of precision or mobility. Obviously, all these heroes fall into that category. Hanzo, Junkrat, Pharah, and Bastion do a ton of damage. Bastion can't move. Pharah, it's difficult to actually hit a target directly. You're just usually spamming rockets out. Same thing with Junkrat. Hanzo, kind of immobile, kind of imprecise. And we'll go over how these roles sort of relate to each other later once we start filling them out a little bit more. The next class we have are the DPS heroes. Now, these guys do quite a bit less damage than the spammers, but they also don't come with nearly as many of their weaknesses. Usually they're a little bit more mobile. They still have decent range. In the case of Widowmaker, she has quite long range. They still do a good amount of damage. They can pick out specific targets. That's very, very important. The McCree, Soldier, Widow can look at someone and do a continuous stream of damage. The last class of damage we have is flankers. These heroes generally have some sort of mobility power that lets them get into the back lines, go around the map undetected, and they also have some sort of invulnerability as well to get out once they're into those back lines. And actually all three of these heroes have that. Genji has dash and reflect, Reaper has teleport and wraith form, and Tracer has blink and recall. All of these heroes are focused on burst damage as opposed to sustained damage like spammers and DPS are. Plus they're all relatively close range, not so much in the mid to long range area. Now that we have a little bit of this filled in, we can already start to see a relationship just in the damage class. In general, spammers beat DPS, DPS beat flankers, and flankers beat spammers. Kind of a triangle sort of thing going on there. The next category we have to go over are the brawlers, I'm going to call them. So the first class is tank, and we have Reinhardt, Diva, and Zarya. This class is meant specifically to prevent the other team from dealing damage to your team, and also generally has control elements. So Reinhardt has his shield, Diva has her defense matrix, and Zarya has her shields. Reinhardt stuns with his pin, he stuns with Earth Shatter. Diva knocks people back with her rocket booster, and she zones out the entire battlefield with her ultimate. And Zarya, of course, has her infamous black hole. To relate this back to our graph, spammers beat tanks because they do so much damage that the tanks can't mitigate it. Tanks generally beat DPS because DPS doesn't do enough damage to punch through the shields and the whatnot. And flankers are about even because a tank will generally win in a fight because tanks generally are focused on close range. However, flankers can distract tanks to maybe make them look behind them, distract them from the team. So in general, that's kind of an equal matchup. The second subset of this we have are the Initiators. Now, these heroes don't really draw damage away from your team directly like the tanks do, but they are very good at starting fights, and they're beefy enough to survive it as well. They have a lot of CC. They can hold the other team down while your team approaches. Mei obviously can throw the wall up, she can go in, her ultimate is a giant freeze, her gun freezes, tons of CC there. Roadhog can hook someone in from a distance, pull him in, stun him, get the early pick, which gives your team a big advantage at the start of the fight. And Winston can jump in, lay his shield down so it's hard to kill him. Also, he can ult, which refills his health and it makes it super hard to kill him. And he knocks everyone around and just really, really messes with your opponent's formation and positioning. Tanks are generally good with the spammers because they can protect the relatively vulnerable spammers while they do all the damage, because tanks don't do much damage themselves. While initiators work rather well with flankers because flankers don't necessarily do the most damage ever, but Initiators can kind of make up for that and also turn heads, so the flankers have an easier time because also they're relatively fragile. Tracer and Genji have quite low hit points considering how close they have to be. Next up we have the supports, and the first one of those are the offensive healers. That would be Ana and Lucio, and offensive healers generally help your team go kill the other team, whereas defensive teams prevent the other team from killing you. Now obviously Zenyatta has Discord Orb, which is infamous for helping your team kill their team, but in general he's still quite slow, quite immobile. He has to stand pretty far back, he's quite vulnerable, and his Transcendence compared to Lucio's Sound Barrier, while they have very similar uses, is actually quite different. Lucio's Sound Barrier is a burst thing. It's for teams that are good at going in and having a quick, fast fight, because the shield goes away quite quickly. Whereas Zenyatta's ultimate, first of all, it actually heals you up, and also it lasts quite a bit longer, so it's good for those sustained team fights where you want to keep your team alive over a long period of time. The other two are quite obvious. Ana has Nano Boost, which helps your team very much to go kill the other team, plus she has Anti-Heal, plus she has Sleep, so very, very obviously offensive support. And Mercy is quite obviously a defensive support because all she does is heal and she resurrects your team after they've been killed. So offensive supports go quite well with Initiators, which also go quite well with flankers. Defensive healers go quite well with tanks, because remember, tanks are in for the sustained, march up slowly sort of fight, and by extension are pretty good with spammers. You use DPS heroes to sort of fill in the gaps. They're in the middle. So for example, if you have a spammy team, but you don't want any more spammers, but you still want more damage, but you don't want any flankers, then you pick a DPS. If you have a flanky team, you want more damage, but you don't want any more flankers, then again, you pick a DPS. It's used to sort of normalize your team, make it more balanced. Finally, we just have simply the supports. They don't heal, but they support the team. So Torbjorn might raise some eyebrows, but honestly, a lot of people are playing Torbjorn as a DPS, which is why he seems a lot worse than he actually is. Now, I'm not saying that Torbjorn's some sort of diamond in the rough that everyone should start picking. He is not that amazing, but he's actually a lot better than a lot of people think if you play him in this sort of support role. Now, what supports do is they back up your team, they help your team, but they don't heal, obviously. Instead, they zone out certain entrances, especially from flankers. Like, a lot of people put Torbjorn's turn up close, like up in front, so it can go and do mad DPS, and that just gets destroyed. That's not very good. You want Torbjorn's turret to be in the back, sort of hidden, but at an angle where it can shoot at any flankers in the back. It wants to be protecting your behind you. Same thing with Symmetra. She also has turrets. Both of them increase the health pools of people on their team. Torbjorn's armor is actually quite strong. And both of them have kind of mediocre weapons, but they can be very strong if they are in certain positions. Now, these two heroes are relatively immobile, so it's better to run them on defense, but they are quite good if you are running a lot of self-sustaining heroes, like a Roadhog, a Soldier, that's not Soldier, that's Soldier, Reaper, things like that. So you might not necessarily need another healer, but you still want a support. That's where Torbjorn and Symmetra come in. So I do certainly invite you to try this formula out next time you're building a team. Think, well, we like having initiators and flankers, so we should probably run offensive healers. Or, oh man, they have a lot of tanks. Maybe they're running 3-3, right? We should play a lot of spammers to try to deal with that, which would of course make us want to run some defensive heals, maybe even a support. So anyway, I was just thinking about it and I thought that it was kind of a cool topic. Maybe you guys would enjoy it. So if you did, if you want to see more of these kind of discussion-y, talk about some random topic that I like videos, let me know in the comments below. I hope you got something out of it. I hope it gave you maybe a different perspective on the game. And I hope that maybe you even had a little bit of fun. So good luck in solo queue and have a great night. Peace out, guys.